Our next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 20825 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau on changes to business. Any member who wishes to speak to the motion should press their request to speak button now, and I call on the Minister to move the motion.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. No member has asked to speak to the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 20825 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is topical questions. At question number 1, I call Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on its decision to escalate NHS Ayrshire to Stage 4 of the National Improvement Framework.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Presiding Officer, as notified to Parliament on Friday through GIQ, following careful consideration of Ayrshire and Arran's position, the decision was made by Government for the Board to be escalated to Stage 4 of the Framework for Finance, specifically financial sustainability, financial management and control, and financial governance and leadership. The move to Stage 4 provides NHS Ayrshire and Arran with support to improve financial sustainability. This will include a Scottish Government-led Assurance Board chaired by a Scottish Government Director, which will oversee progress and report to the Chief Operating Officer and the Director-General to monitor improvements against key challenges. I have a great deal of confidence in the Interim Chief Executive Gordon James and his leadership team, and we will work closely with them over the coming months to return the Health Board to a sustainable financial footing.
Brian Whittle.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? I think one of the things that we maybe don't consider when these things happen is the impact this has on day-to-day staffing, their morale and their consideration of how that impacts their day-to-day work. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, I know that there's actually been meetings held and the staff are still no further forward in their understanding of that. So what more can the Scottish Government do to make sure that the staff are reassured?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I'm very grateful to Mr Whittle for raising that. It's a point that I understand and place a lot of importance upon. I recognise when there is the perception of negative implications of a board's position that this does have a substantial impact on staff, particularly in the increased frustrations that may be brought to bear on them in their frontline service delivery. So Mr Whittle's recognition of that is also welcome, and we do have support in place for staff going through processes like this. I have confidence in Gordon James to ensure his and his leadership's visibility as well, in ensuring that they are visible and providing that leadership on a local basis, and to ensure that staff are getting the requisite support that they need at this time.
Brian Whittle.
And I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Presiding Officer, we knew this was coming. The Scottish Government are very keen in telling us they have record investment in the Health Board. They have record numbers of nurses and doctors and consultants, yet the outcomes continue to slide. We have 14 health boards, we have 32 councils, we have 30 IJBs that are supposed to be there to deliver healthcare, and yet we still continue to have a slide in our health in this country. So can I ask when the Scottish Government will recognise the need to actually have a joined-up approach, a revolutionary approach to healthcare that will include the deployment of significant healthcare and the reduction of the number of people who come through the front door of our healthcare services?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, Mr Whittle makes a fair point in terms of the fact that we do have record funding in the health service and, as he says, record staffing levels as well. That is meeting with escalating demand. And so he is right that we need to point to reform and improvement to ensure that we have a sustainable health service going forward, which is why I'm pleased that he has engaged so constructively with the reform documents that we set out last year, the Population Health Framework, the Operational Improvement Plan and the Service Delivery Framework, are all geared towards ensuring that we optimise the resource and capacity within the system, that we reduce demand, particularly led by the Population Health Framework, of which Mr Whittle and I agree on a great deal in terms of the opportunity through physical activity as an example to prevent ill health and the escalation of ill health. So there are a number of aspects in train in that reform and improvement journey that the Government has already published and are determined to deliver upon.
Carol Mockin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary explain not only how they will fill the massive number of carer vacancies required to end delayed discharge, but also how they will better support existing staff working flat out to provide care to those stuck in hospitals?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I thank Carol Mochan for her question. It's a recognition that not everything that arrives at the door of the health service is driven by issues that the health service has a responsibility for, and she points to social care as being one element of the whole system approach that needs to be taken. That's why we're working very closely with COSLA. That's why we've made further investments within social care in this budget, and we are making steps in terms of the investments that we're making around the social care pay, as well as other elements of the budget, such as terms and conditions and the ability of social care staff to be able to come forward with collective bargaining arrangements in order to make improvements there. I would say gently to Ms Mochan that these things could be improved if we also were able to attract the social care staff here, and she'll be aware of the 77% reduction in health and care visas that have been offered, and the obliteration of the care route for international workers to come and work in this country. I think we could be working closer together to encourage UK colleagues to allow international workers to come and work in the social care sector in Scotland.
Question number 2, Alec Crowley.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the new figures on unmet need for palliative care that were published by Marie Curie on 16 February, showing that almost 1 in 3 people in Scotland die with unmet palliative care needs.
Minister Jenny Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I thank Marie Curie for this report and recognise the important work they do in advocating for the palliative care community. The Scottish Government's palliative care strategy, Palliative Care Matters for All, highlights the changes needed to improve the experiences of people of all ages with life-shortening conditions and their families and carers. It is focused on supporting enhanced delivery of palliative care in communities across Scotland. Marie Curie was involved with the Scottish Government in developing this strategy, and I've asked my officials to meet with them to discuss the figures contained in this report.
Alec Crowley.
Presiding Officer, Marie Curie say that without action, the number of people dying in Scotland with unmet palliative care needs will continue to increase. I believe most of us in here over the last period of time with the assisted dying bill have received emails from constituents that have been heartbreaking, telling us of the experiences they have had when loved ones have died and this right support has not been in place. Does the Minister accept that every individual in need of palliative care should be able to access it when they are dying?
Minister.
Thank Alec Rowley for his question. And very simply, yes, I do. That is why I was very proud to introduce Palliative Care Matters for All framework in September last year. And in my ministerial forward, I noted that in Scotland we still struggle as a society to talk openly about serious illness and death. Societal taboos around dying and stigma, or fears about the withdrawal of treatment, can lead to the marginalisation of palliative care services for adults and children. That's why I'm very pleased that Marie Curie have done this work and that Mr Rowley has raised it in this chamber.
Alec Rowley.
Thank you. I welcome the fact that the Minister says that our officials are going to meet with Marie Curie, because Marie Curie are very clear. They say that it does not have to be this way. And they're calling for legislation to enshrine a right to palliative care in law. Does the Minister agree that every person must have the right to dignity at the end of life and access to quality palliative care? And will the Government therefore support bringing forward legislation at some point that gives everyone the right in law to palliative care?
Minister.
I again thank Mr Rowley for his question. And in fact, just on Friday, I was having exactly this discussion with one of my constituents. I think these discussions are really important for us to have, which is why I'm very pleased that we have, the Scottish Government has the good conversations and dialogues with Marie Curie with regard to palliative care. I will underline again that we, the Scottish Government, and I want everyone in Scotland, regardless of age, diagnosis or location, to have access to timely, high-quality and person-centred palliative care. And I was very thankful for the consultation that Marie Curie did around the right to palliative care alongside our colleague Miles Briggs and others. As I've said before, we have the Palliative Care Matters for All strategy and its 5-year plan, and I want to see how that develops alongside the discussions that we will continue to have with members in this chamber and Marie Curie.
There is much interest in this question. Concise questions and responses appreciated. Bob Doris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Given my work chairing Scotland's cross-party group in palliative care and our ageing demographic, the level of unmet need in palliative care is not wholly surprising. Marie Curie have very much helped push forward our debate on resourcing palliative care. We must identify and quantify the gap in provision as part of any strategy to fill that gap. We need a baseline. Does the Minister agree with me that our long-term strategy to address the palliative needs gap will require a long-term approach to uplifting resource to all aspects of palliative care, as well as encouraging innovation and service reform across all sectors along the way?
Minister.
Thank Mr Doris for his question and recognise the work that he has done in this area too. Our outcome 3 in our palliative care matters for all strategy notes that national and local leaders need to have relevant data to inform planning and delivery of services. So I agree with the points that Mr Doris makes.
Miles Briggs.
Presiding Officer, and I think the report by Marie Curie is a real wake-up call for all of us around unmet need. But can I ask the Minister specifically if she recognises that the budget for 25-26 currently sees a shortfall of £3.9 million, which the sector asked for to be able to deliver parity of pay awards between NHS staff and hospice staff? And also, what plans do Government now have to take forward progress on a national funding framework ahead of the election?
I thank Miles Briggs for his question, and in the budget statement last week, Stage 1 debate, it was noted that the Scottish Government has increased its funding towards hospices specifically to cover the pay differences and with regards to NHS staff. So we have increased the budget up to £9.4 million, which I am very pleased to have supported, along with support from members around this chamber.
Michael Mara.
As Stage 1 of the Assisted Dying Bill, Liam MacArthur MSP said this: investing in improved quality of and access to palliative and hospice care is imperative. Given the stark reality that the Association for Palliative Medicine has set out, MSPs voting at Stage 3 might question this rhetoric. The reality is that for far too many people, palliative care is not an available alternative. Under the proposed law, an early death may be a choice they feel compelled to make. So can the Minister confirm whether any additional allocation to strategically enhance quality and access to palliative care was made in the Scottish Spending Review?
Minister.
Thank Michael Mara for his question. I have been very clear whenever I have answered questions on palliative care and assisted dying that these are not either or, and we need to ensure that that investment is there. As Mr Mara knows, funding is transferred from the Scottish Government to support health boards who also provide a level of palliative care. And as I've just indicated to Mr Briggs, we have increased the budget available to hospices in this next financial year. I feel very strongly that it is not an either-or. We have to ensure we are supporting people to live their best lives and also ensure they have the most dignified deaths that they can have.
Edward Mountain.
Thank you. And Presiding Officer, I'd like to say that the lack of palliative care is keenly felt in rural areas, especially across the Highlands, with some people having to travel hundreds of miles to get that palliative care and are often separated from their family. And we heard on the television the other night that that may give them no option but to opt for assisted dying. Surely that's not the position we want to be in.
Minister.
I agree with Edward Mountain that that is definitely not the situation we want to be in. I also represent a rural constituency with islands as well, so I feel that very keenly. I've actually just returned from Inverness, and I was really pleased to see big advertising hoardings for Highland Hospice, and also one of their vans as well driving around the city, and I think that's important. I think we've also got to remember that hospices simply aren't buildings. They are people going out to communities to support families at that important time of their life.
Liam MacArthur.
Thank you. The Minister may be aware of the evidence that the Health Committee heard at stage 1 from witnesses from Victoria and Queensland, which highlighted the improved investment in and access to palliative care following the introduction of assisted dying laws there, confirming the conclusions of the Health Committee report in 2024 that found no evidence of a deterioration in palliative care in any of the jurisdictions where assisted dying laws are introduced. So will she reinforce again the fact that this is not an either-or? What we need to do is improve access to palliative care, but also improve the choice and compassion we offer to terminally ill Scots who desperately need it.
Minister. So, as Mr MacArthur will know, the Scottish Government is neutral on the issue of assisted dying. However, we have we can do a vote of conscience. I absolutely agree. It is not an either-or situation. We have to ensure that we are providing everyone living in Scotland the appropriate level of palliative care if that is their choice.
Ros McCall.
Thank you. I note the Minister's comments on this is not an either-or situation, but with Marie Curie's research showing that 18,500 people each year die with unmet palliative care needs, and the Association of Palliative Medicine also warning that 40% of doctors may leave the speciality if assisted dying is introduced. So does the Government accept that losing these clinicians would make the existing gap at end of life wider? And what access to the impact on the workforce has the Government done, given the process of the assisted dying bill through the Parliament?
Minister.
So I'm afraid I can't answer the second part of Ros McCall's question. However, can I be very clear that the staff in our hospitals that I have met when I launched Palliative Care Matters for All and more widely are absolutely focused on ensuring that they provide the best care for people at a palliative care or end-of-life treatment. And I think that is really important. And I also think as a group of people in this chamber, we need to come together and work out what is the best way to support the strategy that the Scottish Government launched last year, which I'm sure Ms McCall will have read, and the number of outcomes that are in it. And that focuses very much on ensuring we have the right outcomes for people, but also ensure we have the right staff complement to support these families.
Stephen Kerr.
Listen very carefully to the answer the Minister gave to Alex Rowley's last question, which was a repeat of Marie Curie's request for a right to palliative care in law. Will the Minister please respond to the question that Alex Rowley asked her? Does she support in principle, in practice, this right? And if she does, then she will realise that that gap between what is described in the Marie Curie report needs to be filled pretty quickly.
Minister.
I thank Stephen Kerr for his question. In Scotland, everyone has a right to health care, and that includes palliative care. I think the key information from these figures is that we have to recognise as a society that we need to support people, and that is why I think the Palliative Care Matters for All is probably one of the most important documents that I have introduced in my role as Minister for Public Health and Women's Health.
Thank you. Question number 3, Douglas Ross.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government if anyone who works for the Scottish Government, including ministers, special advisers or civil servants, were involved in discussions concerning the postponement of the trial of Peter Murrell until after the Scottish Parliament election in May.
Minister Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, there have been no discussions. Scheduling of trials is a matter for the independent judiciary and the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service.
Douglas Ross.
My question was worded very specifically because we have almost 20 special advisers, almost 30 government ministers and over 9,000 civil servants within the Scottish Government. So given Graham Day has just given a categorical reassurance that none of this almost 10,000 individuals had any involvement or any discussions at all, can he update Parliament on how he was able to assemble that information over 10,000 individuals in the last couple of days? And if he wasn't, has he just come here to try and fob off Parliament, which is a signal of this corrupt government from a corrupt party of government?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, I utterly refute the allegations within that commentary from Douglas Ross, typical though it is of his approach to many such subjects. Let me be absolutely clear. This is a live court case, and therefore I would strongly suggest we should all of us be cautious about our comments in relation to it. But I reiterate that the scheduling of trials is a matter for the independent judiciary and the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service. It is a matter entirely for the judge to determine the date for preliminary hearings or actual trials themselves. And I would reiterate that there have been no discussions of the nature that Mr Ross implied in his original question.
Douglas Ross.
The Minister is still avoiding saying. So has he gone round almost 10,000 people in the last couple of days to check whether they had discussions or not? And if he hasn't, he cannot possibly give that categorical response. And this comes down to transparency, because this stinks. It absolutely stinks that an accusation that was first made before the 2021 Scottish Parliament election will now not come to court until after the 2026 Scottish Parliament election. And does the Minister not even realise or simply accept how bad this looks for his party and, as I say, that party that are in government at the moment? Because of this delay and this postponement, the reporting restrictions cannot now be lifted until after the Holyrood election. Will he at least accept that his party benefits from that?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, as a Scottish Government Minister, I take very seriously my responsibilities and the need to respect the processes that cover our justice system. And I am not going to be dragged into a toing and froing, particularly in the terms that Mr Ross uses so typically. I make absolutely clear there is an independent process that is followed in all of these things, overseen by the Lord President. There have been no discussions of the type that the member suggests, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions. The next item of business is a debate. Well, I'll allow a moment or two for front benches to organise themselves before we move on to that next item.